Welcome to the True Rotarian Podcast. This podcast is specially designed for all the true Rotarians by a true Rotarian. Hello and welcome to the True Rotarian Podcast. I'm your host, Rotarian AKS Hemant Bhasin, and today we have something really special. A story of service, leadership and legacy that spans generations. Yes, 3 generations, one purpose, which is giving back to the society. Ladies and gentlemen, I have pleasure welcoming past President Rotarian Radhika Backliwal Narain from a very illustrious business family of old Delhi Walas in Delhi. Her father, Rotarian Sultan Singh Backliwal, was the president of Rotary Club of Delhi, and her mother, Rotarian Sharan Rani Foundation, was a recipient of Padma Bhushan as she was a legendary Sarod maestro and a founder vice president of Inner Wheel of Delhi. Radhika is a managing partner of a famous Indian art palace, founder and an honorary director of Sharan Rani Foundation, host of prestigious annual Sharan Rani Samarohs. Radhika is truly a multi-dimensional personality. She's an acclaimed filmmaker, a writer, Kathak dancer, a social activist, gemologist, jewellery designer and a noted businesswoman. Ladies and gentlemen, I went through her educational and professional accomplishments. Believe me, it took me over half an hour to read the same. Yes, it is very phenomenal. So I have mentioned the details in the description box. Please do take out some time and go through the same. Radhika has held some very key positions in Interact, Rotaract and in Rotary, details of which have also been mentioned in the description box. Radhika ji, welcome to True Rotarian Podcast.
Thank you, it's a pleasure being here.
Let's start with the journey. You were sort of in your teens when you sort of saw Rotary from a close eyes. First you were an interactor, then a DRR and then a true Rotarian.
Maybe if it doesn't really tell on my age, then I can tell you that it's not since my teens, but literally when I was in my father's godi that I started attending Rotary. So it was always like an extended family, and that's why probably the journey was so organic and acceptable in the mind that this is something that you always needed to do.
So would you like to start from your childhood, how the Rotary sort of, you got interacted or got attracted to Rotary from that moment onwards?
So I think in many ways a child also emulates the parents, and I think it's a distinct honor and a blessing when one has such illustrious parents and you have the opportunity to be a part of fantastic movements and programs and organizations like Rotary. And when we talk about Rotary, it was also absolutely wonderful to be part of the oldest and the most historic district, which was the Rotary Club of Delhi. And Rotarians may find it a little surprising to hear now in today's day and age that there were more than 300 members when my father was president. And there was a 6 months wait list to join the club.
Wow, which year was this?
So my father was president in the 80s,
Okay.
and then also it was very interesting. They only met over a cup of tea. So earlier it was the Maidens Hotel, then became the Imperial Hotel, and then much later the Ashoka. So Rotary was really not about what we see now. And on a lighter note, when Khushwant Singh ji had done these series of 3 articles on me in the Hindustan Times. So one of the articles he had written, Rotary no, Radhika yes. And when he had interviewed me at his house for one of the articles, and very affectionately, because by that time I had started thinking of him like a very fond grandfatherly figure. And I said, why are you against Rotary? And in Punjabi he had replied that they're only interested in khana pina and talk about themselves. So I said, I'm going to change your mind about Rotary. And at that time I was in Rotaract. तो मेरी बड़ी जिद करने पे वो एक बार एक रोटरी के फंक्शन में भी आए थे हमारे क्लब में. And at that time I was the Rotaract president, and then I became of course the district Rotaract representative. So I saw Rotary going through a series because earlier on you hardly saw women in Rotary. And at the time when my father was president, it was probably an all-male club. When I became the president of the same club in 2006, I was the first lady to do so. And when I became the DRR...
First lady of your district or first lady...
of the Rotary Club of Delhi.
Or Delhi, okay.
I don't think there had been women in the district, though I really can't say now. But as far as Rotaract is concerned, it was the first time ever in our district that a lady had become DRL. And it was a combined district at that time of Delhi and several clubs. I think there were around 75 clubs that I was looking after. So my earliest memories, as I would call them, would be a very extended family of uncles and aunties whose affection and blessings made me never say no to go to a Rotary function. So I never saw it or thought of it as an installation being of endless speeches or something like that. There was always something that you're going and meeting a part of the family. And so it began in the Interact Club of Modern School, Barakamba Road. And I was an active interactor there. We used to do fantastic blood donation camps and many other things. And I remember what a matter of pride it had been for me to go back several years later to that same club as a chief guest on one of the occasions. So,
fantastic.
So when from Interact, when my tenure finished, I was requested by the Rotary Club of Delhi to charter or recharter the Rotaract Club of Delhi. And I said, okay, how many members do we have, what are the funds and what do I have to do? So they said, as in members, 0, as in funds, 0, as in what you have to do is something which you're going to think of yourself. And I had come from this background of Rotary where I had seen mega level projects. And the Rotary Club of Delhi had done some of the most spectacular awards and functions and projects and community service. We built a cancer hospital at AIIMS and many other things. My father had provided kiosks to many handicapped or differently abled persons. In fact, when he was president, he bid for the Southeast Regional Asia Conference. And that was for 10,000 people at Talkatura Stadium.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that was never ever done again. And during his tenure, his honorary secretary was Ashok Ghosh, who later on became a past district governor.
Yes.
And so my father and he were both, what we'd say very Diggaj, Rotarian, dynamic people, never say die attitude. And so my father bid as president, got the bid, and hosted the Southeast Regional Conference.
Wonderful.
So Rotary at that time was really fellowship of the family in a way. And that time there were installations where you weren't just invited as a member, you paid. So the husband paid, the wife paid, the children paid, and still people went. And programs and projects were where everybody attended and participated. And what my father said to me a long time ago, it stayed with me. He said, whether it is an installation or an award function or a change of guard, never forget at the end of the day, it's all a pledge to service.
Yes.
This is the bottom line of Rotary. And fellowship being a key, because when you feel that you're part of a group that you want to be part of, and it is something where you're going to give, not so much to get. For example, I don't think professionally we never thought of Rotary as something that would, help us in our career or profession or anything like that. The mindset was always that you're coming here to give something.
Yes.
And give something to society from a very respectable platform. And so when I began my journey as Rotaract president, one of the key learnings which I had was that never take it as a matter of a club or a get-together of just friends. And you might find it surprising to know that at that young age, and of Rotaractors and all college-going students, we used to have the national anthem, recite the 4-weight test, make minutes of our meetings at that time through an old typewriter, paste them on a register, have a list of whatever we had bought for the club, open a bank account, and I think I was probably the only president at that time in the club which had the accounts audited. And when I left at that time, in 94 was my last tenure. I had 3 tenures, but the first tenure I left 50,000 for the next president to come, which was unheard of as a young college going child or teenager or whatever to do, or rather I was in my early 20s. So those things I think laid the bricks and the foundation that when you came to Rotary, you understood that these things are very important in creating the value system in your club, of the steps that you need to take, the foundation you need to create, besides the members, besides the programs, besides the donations. These little things matter also, and it gives everybody a sense of participation. It makes them feel that these are important things to do. And so I think even seeing my father on the mic or talk, all those things somehow left this impression in my mind. And I saw, wonderful past district governors at that time in my tenure as DIR. There was Hemant ji and HDS Malhotra ji and M.L. Bidani ji and Jagdish Kapoor ji and, people, so many people we don't have now, Sushil Gupta ji. So they were all, for a young girl, people who came, who attended the programs. Sudarshan Aggarji and O.P. Raish ji, who were also RI directors, I had complete support from them. In fact, I used to call Sudarshan Aggarwal ji my Santa Claus. Any project I used to think of and I'd need money and fundraising, and he'd say, yeah, it will be done. Meena Kapoor, who became the first international women's Innovate president and brought great honor. Her husband was also Rotarian in our club. And she, I used to call my fairy godmother, who would be always around, to help in any way. So today when you have Rotaractors who feel a sense of cut off from Rotary or vice versa, I tell them that it's a family. It's how you have to be.
Wow. Let me stay here for a second. You have seen Rotary or Rotaract in 80s, you have seen it in 90s.
Yes.
And obviously, the journey has been incredibly beautiful and you are still very passionate Rotarian.
Yes.
How do you differentiate between what Rotary used to be in 80s and how it changed in 90s, and sort of where are we today in terms of basic service, basic ethics of Rotary is going to be the same, right? Giving back to the society,
Yeah.
and those 24 golden words, which is your 4-way test. They remain the same, but things have changed a little bit. What do you have to say on that?
देखिए, समय बदलता है, लोग बदलते हैं, नई पीढ़ी आती है, नई सोच आती है, नई problems आती हैं. Rotary is supposed to address the needs of the community. So as times change, needs also change. So certain key projects or certain key areas of service which Rotary is now more focused on was probably not there at that time. You didn't have social media, you didn't have WhatsApp. I think an unfortunate addition to Rotary in clubs has also been the WhatsApp groups where people at any time of the day and night can resort to saying anything not so pleasant and have access to so many people. Earlier on, it was a little more restrained because this kind of access was not available. Also, I feel that when there was more human interaction for the lack of so many electronic devices to do the work for you, and people spent more time in the planning and the execution of service projects. There was far more commitment of time which was given, and believe me, people who were Rotarians at that time, which you also know, were all at the top of their professions and top industrialists and businessmen and leaders of their profession. So it was not that they had that kind of time to give, but perhaps they had that commitment and a family commitment to give as well. When it comes to things now in terms of projects, I would say, in terms of grants and availability and access has become easier because of things being available on the internet, information being available. It is easier to see what things are being done around the world, people to see what's happening in other clubs. People can interact more, upload their pictures, so there's a positive. It's how you want to use it. So many things now which were later on added. cervical cancer, or you never knew this was a cure. COVID brought in its own share of issues, and
So as SIG started developing, Rotary also changed with the needs of the society.
It had to.
Fantastic, absolutely.
And also I think this is a spectacular organization where you're dealing with cultures, communities, countries, in terms of conflict, in terms of different areas of focus, in terms of need, whether it's a third world or a first world country, everybody has a need. There are always problems which need solutions to address them. And it is wonderful that I think one of the biggest pluses of Rotary in today's day and age was the involvement of women in the forefront of Rotary,
yes,
which really did not happen so much before, or rather if you go back in time, never happened. Hence you had Inner Wheel and other organizations for that to take off. So there have been a lot of pluses, and I think 20 years down the line, there's this very funny old story at the time. There's a quote that, at our time people were more obedient and they had better ethics and they had more morals and children listened to their parents. And this quote is by Aristotle. So at every time in society, it's always, it's easier to be intelligent in hindsight. But every time people have looked back and said, हमारा time better था.
right,
या हमारे ज़माने में ये होता था.
yes,
ज़माना तो आज है और अभी है. And if they said you never planted a tree 10 years ago, plant a tree today. There's always the time to do it now.
true,
So if you have that focus and that commitment, today you can use all the electronic media, you can use the communication skills, and you can use the knowledge tools to up your game and do far better than you've ever done before.
absolutely.
But you just keep that human level and that human connect, which is going to be the strength in Rotary.
Wow. Let me take you back into, since we are talking about generation of service
Yes,
and things
yes.
like that, so I'll want my audience to also know
Yes.
if you have some very beautiful memories about the projects that you did in various sort of
Yes.
stages of your journey in the Rotary.
So, there are some key images, like we are shooting on camera today. So I would say in the camera of your mind, certain snapshots would sort of stay. And no matter where you go and how many awards and recognitions you get in different associations, there are 2-3 wonderful memories which I remember as a Rotaractor. I remember for one of my projects, I had invited the First Lady of the country, Mrs. Usha Narayanan, and her husband, of course, at that time, K.R. Narayanan, was the President of India. And to my surprise, she accepted to come as the chief guest for this project that I was doing. And I remember sitting in her, in this little lobby in their private residence at Rashtrapati Bhavan. And I had gone to pick her up, very naively saying that I'll make sure the function will go on time. I don't want a chief guest coming late. Now look at the mindset. I'm talking about the First Lady of the country, and I still want my project to go on time because
Yes.
I don't want it to start late. So I said I'll go personally and receive her and bring her. And so when I was sitting there, I remember K.R. Narayanan coming out in a safed kurta pajama, and he said, "Hello, what are you doing here?" And I said, "I came to pick up Mrs. Usha Narayanan and she's coming for my project." And and I said to him that, when my mother was presenting her Sarod recitals in Australia, you were the ambassador at that time from India. And he had actually organized the concerts there. And he said, "Arey, तुम शरण रानी जी की बेटी हो, तुमने नहीं चला," because I had written as a Rotaractor without giving my family background, because एक वो तलबूते पे कुछ चीजें करेंगे. And he said, "अरे drawing room खोलो, अंदर बिठाओ." And we sat and on the sofa chatting for almost half an hour with him on one side, Usha auntie, whom I started calling auntie later, on one side. And there was no mobile to click pictures or take audio by it or do anything like that. So when we came out, and I kept looking, thinking that I'm speaking to the President of India, but there is a project waiting. And after a few minutes, and I said that, "Chale, late na ho jaye." So she said, "We have time." And I didn't understand what she meant by "we had time." So when we were stepping out, and my car and driver were at the porch, and I said, "May I request you to come?" She said, No, you will ride with me. Your car can follow." So I sat in the First Lady of the country's with their entire, you had these motorcade in front and behind. And I realized what she meant was because there were no traffic lights. The traffic lights don't exist when you're the President of India's wife.
So you managed to do your project on time.
We managed, we reached in 7 minutes. But what was so interesting with the people at that time, when I finished giving my speech, she said, "Give me your paper." And I said, "Pata nahi kuch galat bol diya." And she took it. And then in the evening, I got a call from her, direct phone, directly to me. And I picked up and she said, "Radhika, main Usha auntie bol rahi hu." And I blanked out. And I said, "Ji," not knowing who Usha auntie, this is the same Usha Narayan. She said, "तुम बहुत अच्छा लिखती हो, आज के बाद जहाँ बोलो कि अपनी स्पीच मुझे भेजना फैक्स करके, कंप्यूटर तो नहीं, मैं अब कहीं बोलने जा रही हूँ, मैं अपनी स्पीच भेजूंगी, तुम्हें बताना कैसी थी." And that became a long association which went on for a very, very long time with affection and guidance. And I remember another time when I was invited as the chief guest when I was Rotary president to this orphanage on 15th August and asked to hoist the national flag. And I can't tell you what that feeling was like. That chanda phehraye and the rose petals fall. And that sense of pride in who you are. And that moment you get, that it's a platform which I think brings out that sense of patriotism to you even more. And that sense of being Indian and doing that seva, being an Indian.
Wow.
So these were some wonderful memories. And one of the greatest blessings, I must say, I had set up these amusement parks and sports complexes in a couple of slums and in one village near Patodi. And I remember सारे झूले लगाए थे हमने, सारी sports facilities set up की थी. It was a huge thing as a Rotary. It involved a lot of labor and huge finances. So the day we inaugurated it, I said we'll fill it up with balloons. This elderly gentleman got up and he said, "वो लड़की कहाँ है?" without knowing my name. So I went there. He was wearing a typical pagdi. And he said, "वो पेड़ देख रही हो?" in his hand. I still remember the finger was little trembling. उस पे एक टायर होता था, हम खाली उस पे झूलते थे, हमने कभी झूले नहीं देखे. And he put his hand on my head and he said, "अब से इस बच्चे जो हैं इस गांव के वो झूलों पे झूलेंगे."
Wow, how wonderful.
So there were so many things, going to hospitals in the charitable wards and taking toys for children. And I remember the 6-month-old baby with a drip in the hand who was crying, and I put this toy phone on the bed and punched some buttons and some music started coming. Usne, ekdam the child turned around, smiled. The most beautiful smile through tears, and the child stopped crying.
Wow.
Now this did not need a huge amount of money or time, but I think वो जो एक पल था, हम जितने लोग साथ गए थे, वो सबके दिल को छुआ.
Wow.
So commitment फिर ऐसे ही बनते हैं बचपन से.
I'm sure in the recent past, in a couple of years back, your father,
Yes.
you,
Yes.
and your daughter,
Yes.
did you sit on the dining table to discuss Rotary or Rotary projects anytime? Because this is again 3 generations sitting together and
Yes.
discussing,
पुराना हम कहते हैं ना कि गुरु गोविंद का 2 खड़े काके लागू पाए, बलिहारी गुरु आपने जिन गोविंद दिया दिखाए. So when you have a guru at your own home, and if you need any kind of advice or guidance, you would just automatically ask. And I think nothing would give a father more pleasure than the granddaughter coming, I would say, be superseded by the daughter, the granddaughter coming and saying that, "Look, I'm becoming a DIR," or "This is what I want to do," or "This is the project that I'm wanting to do." So it made me very happy that both Anisha and Aditya, because I have twins, were part of the Interact Club of Modern School Barakhamba. दोनों ने ब्लड डोनेशन कैंप्स में काम किया. आदित्य ने रोटरी के लिए अपने सरोद रिसाइटल्स भी प्रेजेंट किए और बहुत खुशी का दिन था जब अनीशा DIR थी और डिला में आदित्य ने सरोद का रिसाइटल प्रेजेंट किया.
Wonderful.
So it was wonderful to see both children being involved from this young age as a part of Rotary family and getting the blessings of all the elders. So एक वो wisdom and उस ज़माने की पीढ़ी में practical hands-on approach, a common sense, and it would come from there so beautifully that I think वो knowledge जो है अगर आपको मिल जाए सही समय पे तो कई चीज़ें खूबसूरती से कर सकते हैं। तो रोटरी में ऐसे गुरु हैं जो बहुत जेनरस हैं अपनी नॉलेज से, जो शेयर करेंगे, आपको आगे लेके आएंगे। लेकिन अगर आपके घर में ही, एंड दिस इज समथिंग आई से टू ऑल द रोटेरियंस इन क्लब्स, कि आप अगर रोटरी क्लब खोल रहे हैं तो सबसे पहले आप बच्चों को भेजिए, मत कहिए कि वो कॉलेज में हैं या उनका करियर शुरू हुआ है। हम सब ने अपने करियर्स किए। आई डिड हिस्ट्री ऑनर्स फ्रॉम LSR, I'm a gemologist, and many things that were happening at that time. So it's only a question of time management and commitment. और हो सकता है वो आप क्लब में ना आना चाहें, मैं तो उल्टा कहती हूँ कि घर में भी तो सब साथ रहते हैं, बड़े भी रहते हैं, 3 पीढ़ियाँ भी साथ रहती हैं, तो थोड़ा सा स्पेस दीजिए, उनको आने दीजिए, let them light the lamp, let them hold key positions। तो सबको आप थोड़ा सा स्पेस देंगे, वो भी आपको इज्जत देंगे, सब मिलके बहुत खूबसूरती से हो जाता है।
Very nice. Must have been a great moment for you a few days ago. I believe your daughter got into LSR, the college where you excelled a couple of years ago.
So I'll say in Rotary, my daughter started her leadership journey earlier than me. Anisha became a DIR, I was never a DIR. And I always told her that because your mother is a Rotarian, all the hard work you do may sometimes be put aside by somebody saying it's from a Rotary family.
Yes.
Or somebody has done it for her. So, let me put it in a very odd way, a nepo kid, like the star kids space time. So in Rotary, sometimes that also can happen. So I told her that अपने बलबूते पे करना. And I realized this is so true. हम रास्ता दिखा सकते हैं, लेकिन जब वो एक बोर्ड मीटिंग बुलाती है, अपनी एक प्लानिंग मीटिंग बुलाती है, वो एक प्रोजेक्ट को विजुअलाइज करती है, वो किस नजरिए से देखती है, किस तरह करना चाहती है, वो पीढ़ी अलग है, उसकी सोच अलग है। आप खाली एक थोड़ा सा रास्ता दिखा सकते हैं, जो चीज़ें उनको नहीं पता है कि बैंक अकाउंट्स कैसे होते हैं या फंड्स को किस तरह ट्रांसपेरेंटली आप डील करें, या कुछ ऐसे रास्ते जो आपको गलत ले जा सकते हैं या आप इस तरह से कर लें, तो which any teacher, guide, mentor in any organization will do. But I always told her that something which my mother had told me, that you chase achievement, not success. And if you chase achievements और दिल से project करोगी, तो कोई भी ऐसी चीज़ है जो तुम ना कर पाओ। So I think at the end of the day, I was very proud of the fact that Anisha became a leader in her own right, with her own thinking, with her own compassion, with her own empathy. And I remember once she told me that, when they were very small, we are Jains, and Chandni Chowk mein Digambar Jain temple hai, which has the only birds hospital in Asia. And my father would take them by the hand to that birds hospital and say, जो जीव दया है वो सबके प्रति होनी चाहिए. It is not towards human beings. तो वो बचपन से जो संस्कार उनको मिले, तो अगर वो, and they consider themselves very blessed. They understand that today when they can afford to order a pizza for 1,200 rupees, it could be an entire day's wages for somebody or a week's wages for somebody. So they understand the privilege of being in an educated family in Delhi. And so the projects which Anisha did, which I would leave for her to talk about rather than me.
Fantastic.
I think I felt very humbled in seeing her simplicity and in seeing the willingness to learn and evolve. And I think that is what is needed.
I've had this opportunity of talking to her many times. I see her as a very level-headed child. Fantastic, and she's got very focused. Would you like to give a message to all the listeners and the young Rotarians, Rotractors, who are watching this show? How do we take Rotary ethics and principles forward?
I think it begins with you, and I think what I will always say, it's not about you and a Rotarian. At the end of the day, it's between you and your God, because there's somebody different higher up who's watching. So all your rewards, recognitions, positions are very temporary. At the end of the day, it's everything about a year. It's the relationships you make for life.
Yes.
It is the memories you leave behind. अगर आपकी वजह से कोई मुस्कुराया, किसके दिल को आपने छुआ, अगर आपने 10 लाख लोगों को नहीं छुआ लेकिन एक बच्चे के दिल को छू लिया, आपने कुछ अच्छा तो किया, rather than doing nothing. कितने लोग हैं जो कहते हैं कि नहीं हमारे बस का नहीं है, या नहीं कर सकते. मैं कहती हूँ आपने कोशिश ही नहीं की तो आप तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं कर सकते.
Yes.
आप कोशिश करके कुछ तो करेंगे.
Yes.
So अगर आप एक मैसेज की बात कर रहे हैं, if you permit, I'll say it through a few lines,
Yeah, please.
which is a prayer, in fact, कि रहे भावना ऐसी मेरी, सरल सत्य व्यवहार करूं, बनी जहां तक इस जीवन में औरों का उद्धार करूं, मैत्री भाव जगत में मेरा सब जीवों से नित्य रहे, दीन दुखी जीवों पर मेरे उर से करुणा स्तोत्र बहे.
Fantastic.
So जो एक 4-way टेस्ट है, वो एक बहुत पुरानी भावना, मेरी भावना जो एक प्रेयर है उसमें भी है कि जितने भी लिविंग बीइंग्स हैं उसकी तरफ, उन सब की तरफ एक करुणा के स्तोत्र से, उस रूप से हम उनको देखें और सबसे दोस्ती रखें.
Fantastic.
And Rotary is friendship.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming to True Rotarian Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's talking to our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, if you also have any story to tell or you want to share anything about Rotary, and you're most welcome to please write to us. It will be a pleasure, honor to invite you to this particular show. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much and Jai Hind.
And thank you. It was a pleasure interacting with the
Thank you.
True Rotarian. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.